go ahead and get started. Thanks for coming, and thanks to those of you online. We have about a half-an-hour presentation today, followed by another half-hour for questions and answers. So hold your questions until then. My name is Rebecca Goodman. I coordinate the Africa Biodiversity Collaborative Group. I'm going to give just a short introduction before I hand it over to Kimberly Holbrook from TNC to introduce our speakers today. So ABCG is a consortium of 7 international conservation NGOs. Am I going here?
Press
this one?
right.
Okay. And they're here, African Wildlife Foundation, Conservation International, the Jane Goodall Institute, the Nature Conservancy, the Wildlife Conservation Society, World Resources Institute, and the World Wildlife Fund. And together, these organizations are collaborating to tackle complex and changing conservation challenges across the continent, and really bringing together each of their resources across that continuum to address these large-scale and ongoing problems. And we do that by first prioritizing biodiversity conservation into international development agendas, promoting good conservation practices amongst practitioners. That's here, first within the consortium, and then with our partners, including local civil society on the ground. And so we have this third area of capacity development and really working with our African partners to integrate best practices. We are currently nearing the end of a 3-year program phase, which began in October 2015 and extends through September of this year. And during that time, we've been focusing on 4 thematic issues: land and resource tenure rights, land use management, managing global change impacts, which is another way of saying looking at the human adaptation responses to climate change, and global health linkages to biodiversity conservation, which is split into 2 areas: water, sanitation, and hygiene, or WASH, and population health and environment, and how to integrate those with biodiversity conservation and the perspectives for their respective sectors. And then we have a 5th area called emerging issues, which essentially employs a small grants mechanism. We had about a $250,000 fund that's now been expended. It went to member organizations in partnership with local organizations in small targeted 1-year projects to kind of treat on a more rolling basis these new threats to biodiversity. Okay, that's about all I'll say. There's plenty of ways to find out more. First is our website. Of course, have the social media presence. The listserv is probably the best way to find out more about events like these. And also, we're sending out publications as they arise, and we have an exciting dissemination planned for Wednesday. So get on that listserv soon. You can also always contact me. I'm based here in DC, and then I have a counterpart who's actually in Nairobi. She's focused on communications and engagement in Africa. So if you're ever passing through, you can send her a line. And with that, I will hand it over to Kimberly.
Okay, thank you, Rebecca. I'm going to stand over here by the microphone so everyone online can hear me. So welcome to all of you in the room, and to folks tuning in on the webinar. I'm super excited to have both Marc and Edward here today to present to you. They are, and their respective organizations are very valuable and respected partners of the Nature Conservancy. We together belong to a consortium of partners in the Northern Tanzania Rangelands Initiative. And they are doing critical work on conserving biodiversity and improving the rights and livelihoods of communities in Tanzania. So I think the way Rebecca already let everybody know, we're going to have the 2 presentations. I think Loure is going to go first, and then Marc Baker will go second. And I just want to give you a quick bio on each of them. Marc Baker is the founding partner and director of operations of Carbon Tanzania, which was founded about 11 years ago in 2007, I think. Marc started his conservation career as an ornithologist working with UNDP And following that, he went to work on community conservation and forest management projects in both Kenya and Tanzania. And today I think he's going to talk about integrating RED in the Yaeda Valley and the Makame Wildlife Management Area, and how that can help communities benefit from their own natural resources. And then our first presenter will be Edward. He's one of the founding members of the Ujamaa Community Resource Team, also known as UCRT. UCRT is a Tanzanian organization that has worked on community rights and sustainable development for the past 20 years. So it's been a very long going organization. Edward is a member of the Maasai tribe. He's a community leader and a strong advocate for protection of community rights to their land and their resources, and has been involved in this for many, many years. These combined with a degree in management and administration puts him in a very unique position to represent land rights in Tanzania. And then last but not least, many of you may already know Edward because he was awarded in 2016 the prestigious Goldman Environmental Prize for his work in Africa and community land rights. So I welcome Edward, and then later I welcome Marc. Thanks.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. Morning.
Thank you, Kimberly, for introducing me. I'm Edward Loure, and I work for Ujamaa Community Resource Team. And I'm happy today to be here in Washington, D.C. together with my colleague, Marc, which actually we are going to take you through our experiences down the community, on the grounds, working on the land and natural resource management. Try to find, try to make a community land or area to be a very better place to stay, for bringing a better win-win situation for both communities, wildlife, and environment. Okay.
No.
Uh-oh.
Okay, this is one of the areas that we are working on, and this is the environment look like. And for many years, the pastoralist community and hunter-gatherers have been living in an area that is rich in terms of the resources like this. But now the area is more being affected by a number of forces. This include deforestation, farming, and other human activities that is going to this community land. Some without any plans, they just go illegally, settle, and you may find after a couple of days someone is just there. And another thing that is really causing this problem is the issue of certification. This community has been owning this land traditionally with no clear legal certification of ownership of land. So asking someone to go, he immediately will ask you that, why do I have to go? What evidence do you have that really proves that this land belongs to you? And because it is just a traditional home, it's easier you to say it's our land. We have been just using it for many years, and you are a newcomer. And because some of them, they come from urbans, they are more elites in terms of legal aspect. So they just say, no, I cannot go until you show me something that really proves that the lands belong to you. And that's why now, together with UCRT and partners, we try to come with the legal certification of land, but more promoting on the traditional system of communal land use management. This is the northern part of the country. It's not the full map of Tanzania, but we are working mainly on the there's no pointer somewhere. Okay, on the red cycle, it's where our program, carbon program is. And also, UCLT is mainly working on Arusha and Manyara region. In total, we are working in 93 villages, which actually we have already secured over 350,000 hectares of land around that area. We are mainly focused on communal land use security, because private land, we really have a little bit incident to help because it is private. But if it is communal, you help because it creates a number of advantages at the community level. One, you are not only supporting one single individual, you are supporting more than one people living in that area. But also in terms of ecology, it also creates connectivity from one place to another for our livestock and also for wildlife. And this is really creating important migratory routes from one place to another. You know, our livestock and wildlife cannot be only sustained in a very small piece of land because of the different resources available in this land. You may find village A, B, C has salt lick with palatable grass, but one single village in the middle have no those resources, and livestock and cattle need to access those resources. So that's why we try to work on the belt of the northern part of the country to make sure that we have a very great mobility for our livestock and we also have arranged ourselves and try to find better way of managing our work on the ground. And a couple of years ago, we have come up with what we call Northern Tanzania Rangeland Initiative. It is a platform where different stakeholders coming together and share ideas and come up with the plans on how to make the northern part of the country a better rangelands place for wildlife and livestock and natural resource management in general. And the main work of NTRI is to make sure that the intervention that is carried out in the northern part of the country are more coordinated, and also bringing a platform where different stakeholders meet and share the ideas. It's not a registered entity. It is just an open coalition where everyone is free to join and have a stake to share different work that they do. We found ourselves that this is a very potential platform, because we mainly as UCRT working on land and natural management issues, but still on the ground there's other aspects that also are going on the ground. For example, the issue of health, try to work on the human population increase, which is also another big issue on the ground. We have not that capacity, but someone there is also working around it. So he says better we bring them on board, and then we sit on the same table and discuss issues affecting a human population in regard to natural resource management. And then bringing other expertise of different kind to the platform. For example, private sector. We also found that private sector are very important in helping us to link community with the natural resource benefit, but also for the land security. We realized that in one of the UCRT working village, we found that number of certificates that are issued in one single village help to protect the land. Having village has, you may find village has a village land certificate, but at the same time village has a contract between one of the two operators on how they can be doing tour activities. So it's like a doubling of cementing land security, because the number of contracts being in a single village, it will make a newcomer to say, oh, this is not a place to find any more land, because there's a lot of intervention going on. Land use plan certification, contract with the tour operator, contract with the carbon trade, and all this kind of things. So for us, we found that if possible, we try to make the environment more secure by putting compatible different layers of protecting land. In the map, it shows some of the areas that UCRT and other NTLI partners are also operating to. Where do I get the pointer?
The red one.
In the red one. Okay. It's not pointing.
It is, but because of the screen, you're not seeing it easily, but it's there.
Oh, really?
Oh, I see it. Yeah, it's
You
down
see?
below.
So, there's something I see. Anyway, like number one, it is the rangeland toward the very north part of the country, in the border of Kenya and Tanzania, and also we're also UCRT also doing some intervention, but at the same remit. At the same time, we have our WMA called remit. It has been also supported by WF long ago. And also in the middle, there's also villages that also the UCRT and other NTLI partners are working around the area. But also down, we have Makame, WMA, one of the very big WMA in the rangelands. It's an old one, but the interventions, the community conservation intervention did not start up long ago, but nowadays we put more effort try to see that they can be able to protect and try to come up with the community natural resource benefit out of it. And carbon program also started there to make sure that we link local community with the carbon benefit, to make sure that apart from wildlife benefit that they're getting to, they can also know the importance of protecting forests, because it also linked to the benefit. And having a community feeling of ownership of those resources, both wildlife and forests at the same time. We have also in the middle with, I don't know if this is a orange color, number 3, that's another community kind of conservation called easement. They call it Simanjiro easement. It's a land that the community set aside for grazing. But at the same time, the same land, community, the wild beasts are using for during breeding season. And together with the community, we try to approach now the stakeholders that depend on the Tarangire National Park for their tour activities, to also to think about outside the national park and try to find revenues to support that particular village for the work that they do. Because these are the it's a dry season grazing for this community, but it is a wild beast breeding area during the wet season. So community working away during the wet season to leave an area for the wild beast for breeding, and during the dry season they will come back for grazing the animals, because also the area is closed by permanent water source. And now the private tour operators come together and having a 5 years contract with the community of paying up to 7 million shillings per village, and there's 2 villages, Sukura and Terat. And from that contract, also they have to put some roles that the community need to play if they need the contract to continue. For example, the temporary settlement for the livestock keepers is allowed, but any permanent settlement is not allowed. And farming is not allowed, any poaching, whatever, is not allowed. And the community of the local game scout to patrol the area and report if there is anything that is contrary to the land use plan. But also the two operators also link the game scout with the nearby range posts or game rangers to help them, because they have no any arms or weapon, but they just see wear traditional clothes with their camera, the binoculars, and they report that something is there and found that it's also working. This is our approach as UCRT. We do secure communal rights to make sure that the local community are able to have legal certification of their land, natural resource governing bylaws to govern the existing land use plan, and also come up with the land use plan map to show us that this is how the single villagers plan their land, to make sure that no piece of land which is just live vacant or with no plan. Normally, all the villages has plans, but those plans are not well known. If someone from our capital city visits to the village and just go around the village, and at the end of the visit you ask him, what did you see in the landscape? They always says, this is a purely open land. This is a vacant area. This is a bushy land. This is just land with nobody. But for the local communities, they know each different use of every piece of the land to the whole entire community land. And we try to take all those use and document and try to put on the digital map to make sure that it's more on a modern kind of modern map. And glue on the village offices to make sure that if someone comes to the office, it's easy to say this is how we have planned our land, and this is how the land is planning. And if someone is interested in one single particular land use plan, and then you can say, this is my area of interest, and then you can get from the community how you can be going to. Another one is strength and governance, that all these plans need local communities who are strong and maintain management of the land use. Because even within the local community, you might find them, they start to misuse the land. But if there's a strong governance within the community, then they can be able to say, bylaws is there with penalties. And if someone tries to misuse, then you will go under the penalties area, and then you can stop doing that. There's also issue of managing our resources through funds that they are getting from the tourism activities and other venture. That we also help them not just to receive fund and misuse, but receive and direct it to the proper channel of village planning, according to the village plans and budgets. Here we also concentrate on build village council capacity, natural resource committees, land use plan committees, and also the village general assembly, which is the highest organ in the village in Tanzania local government system. And also there is the issue of increased community benefit. To make sure that After all this land is secured, we also need to see that they also link the good plan they have on hand also with benefit, to make sure that they will not be start to regret having better plans but they are poor. Link them with available markets of the people that are suitable to their land. For example, villages that have a high number of wildlife, we link them with tourism. Villages that have a good forest but less number of animals, we link them with carbon trade. And then village with mountain, which are more interesting, for tourism to climb, like Limalengai. Then we also link them with the tour operators who also been willing to climb the mountain and other resources, which is mining and kind of. And then we set a very good, fair contract between the tour operators and the community. And the UCRD only doing facilitation to make sure that the contract language should be local, legal aspect should also be taken care of, and benefit as well. Because not all the tour operators in my country are good and they're ready to share benefit with the local community. Some they can just try to beat around the bush and come up with contracts that are purely not beneficial for the local communities. These are the benefits of land use plan, that after you have good planning in place, you may also find that the conflict reduced among the land users, because the way we plan, we also try to oversee what are the plan of the next village. If the land bordering with the next village is farming, we also try to ask the village that is doing new plans to also take care for the neighboring village plans and try to check the technicality of the land fertiles. If the same ecosystem, the land is the same, we just go having plans that are connecting to each other to make sure that we reduce conflict among the land users. Also, there is a better negotiation between the boundaries demarcation. So, bringing community together and share the idea, the plan, meeting, it also create a friendship or strengthening a friendship where these communities now feel that why are you conflicting? Well, we are all the same community living in this area. Let us try to use our traditional system and forget about court and use the traditional mechanism to solve the conflict. There's also issue of increased land tenure security. Having this certification in place and land use plan to also help make sure that if someone happen to take the village to court, say that I have all these lands belongs to me, then they have what they can table in terms of defending their land. There's also issue of centralization management of the natural resources, that the natural resources committees now being controlled by the local village institution to make sure that all the plans are in their hands and they can also be able to advise any other stakeholders coming to the area that this is how we plan our land, this is how we manage, this is how we graze. If you happen to join this village for a certain period of time, you need to follow these regulations to make sure that you only be there for a couple of times before you build capacity of the local institution, through their role and responsibilities. Improve pasture. Yes, we come up with a annual seasonal grazing calendar where the pastoralists, because before they've been grazing it, but sometimes they don't know until where will be the end of the 3-month grazing season. So we put posters or whatever labeling um, just about written end of grazing area from village A. So they know that this is our 3 months grazing. So that the other areas will allow grass to get taller and also get seeds, so that they can also drop seed for the next rain, for getting more grass, and also for disease control. That having a shifty grazing control to also reduce diseases, and it keep animal grazing, getting pasture throughout the season. And also there's the issue of economic benefit that land use plan and natural resource management linking community to benefit. This is how we do meetings in the local level. I think these are the Hadzabe community, one of the hunter-gatherers communities in Yaeda Valley. Mark, are you there? Yeah. Doing a presentation with the community about the natural resource beneficiary and what are the advantage if they go for the natural resource benefit, and what are the disadvantages. How can you be able to get the benefits, and how are you going to lose? Because you need to know both sides. Because they might say that if you have it, you have it forever. But remember that if the land grabbers still be coming and grab their land slowly, you may find that the area becomes smaller and smaller. And at the end of the day, you may find that the land is no longer suitable to any natural resource program. This is how the local community now start seeding plants and try to come up with the maps, put them on the ground, and start to say, oh, this is the name of the place so and so, and the end of our gathering or end of our community intervention in terms of natural resource management. And then you put, they say, oh, so that's not really, yeah. It's here. Because some of these maps are made away from their experience. And if you print them out and you take it down to them, they start to say, oh, but in according to what we understand, it's outside here. But he said, no, according to what you have planned and put on the GPS point, this is how the land looks like. So we bring this map to them on the ground, sit with them, and try to share the story from the map and find a good way of incorporating both traditional leaders and the modern technology. This is the Yaeda Valley joint land use plan map. As I mentioned, these are the 3 connected villages together. And if you check on the blue line, this land have the same use with the Yaeda Chini village and Mongwamo. But at the same time, it also connected the Yaeda Chini village with the Eshkash, and there's another very far piece which connected the other village outside the Yaeda Valley. It's really very important for them to see a joint map of this kind, so they can. So if there's some area that's blocked by the different use, now they can start to think and say, why don't you have any plan of open that particular connectivity for the benefit of ourselves and our neighbor. But also it increased more mobility for livestock and wildlife. But also this community are hunter-gatherers. They move from one place to another. And if they found that no barrier of natural resource connection from one village to another, we'll start enjoying. And that is, now we have another program working on the other side toward Ngorongoro Conservation Area through Lake Yasi to make sure that we have a very great connectivity from the valley to Ngorongoro Conservation Area. The certificate of a customary right of occupancy. This is a mode of certificate that now UCRT is spearing ahead to. Since we realized that this is after we did our local research, we found that this is a very safe angle or safe route to take. And this is a certificate that actually helped me be able to receive the Goldman Prize. In our country, the most well-known certificate is individual titles. The certificate that shows that you belongs to a certain plot. But when it comes to communal, yeah, they know, but it's never been more popularized as a certificate for the people living in the communal lifestyle. So this is the certificate that we, together with the community, the UCRT members, we put more effort on, and we now try to make sure that all the villages around the northern part of the country, or for the areas that have communal land sharing of resources, they have to go for. This certificate is signed by a number of individuals, 3 of them, but these are trustees. They are not landowners. They are trustees. They just sign on behalf of the entire community. And the certificates, community can decide on years of the certificates. Some they go for 99 years, and the other community they say, we just want a certificate to go forever. Why don't you have a certificate of 10 years, then you renew again, then you renew, and you don't know who will be in power from that day? So most of this community, they said, in Swahili they use the word called muda usiokuwa na kikomo. That just be our communal land for time with no limit. And the certificate is protecting all the boundaries of the communal land. And it is more on a customary right of occupancy. It is very well known as many other certificates in the country. But the good thing for it, you cannot using it as a collateral to get funds from the bank, where most of the individual certificates just go for and the land is get out from the hands of the local community, then to the bank, and leave people landless. We also come up with messages to try to promote it. Because I remember the first one was given by the commissioner, by the Commission of Land, Northern Zone. She visited the Hadzabe area, and we asked her to go and talk to this community. And after 2 hours of her being visiting the area, she just said, I was not really been much aware on this certificate, but now, super. Let them go for it, bring it to my office on the site, and take it to them. And communities, different communities are coming with the different messages on how to promote the CCRO certificate. Some they said the CCRO is our strong tool to defend our communal land. These are the signposts that we put on different land uses. For example, this one is talking about the Hadza traditional land use, where if anyone from outside the Hadza community take the cattle to the area and found this spot somewhere, oh, they start to say, now I have to go back to the Hadza community and ask for permission. Unless otherwise, if they find you there, then you will be binded by their local bylaws. And at the end of the day, they will make sure that you are not going to benefit from the problem that you cause. You cannot put your bomb and say, I just pay the penalty and then I will stay for another month because I paid the penalty. No, they will penalty you, and if they come back again in 2 hours, they will penalty you again. You may find that at the end of the day, it's a lot of money you have to quit. This is the map of showing the connectivity of the villages all along from Kiteto district boundaries, Makame WMA, Kungunero Game Reserve, Tarangire National Park, Randilan WMA, up to Manyara Ranch, and then Manyara National Park to Ngorongoro Conservation Area 3. So these are how we, for example, we still have a work to do in the middle, the temporary village, because all these other villages have agreed on the connection and the CCRO to connect in this land. But still the other village is still under the negotiation. But because the other ones have already have plans, we also call the member of those villages to a joint committee where all other villages come and discuss about the way they're managing joint land, to make sure that those who are not part of the jointing committee can also be eager to engage on the joint committees and speed up their plans so that one day we'll find a super connectivity from town, from Makame WMA to Randilan WMA. And again, this is it's just shown other villages up there and also here. There's also other villages that the land use is almost ready, but we did not yet include into the map because they're still under the National Land Use Plan Commission for approval. Once it is ready, then we can plug them in the map. Challenges, we have political interference as one of them. Since the land use plan, it's our 10 years plan, and it will more involve on village-based agreements. And if the village is divided into two, again the original land use plan have to cease, and then again you have to create another two different land use. So for politicians, they just say, I want to be a councillor tomorrow, and because two villages cannot form a ward, let us divide this village and then you have a ward, and tomorrow I will be a councillor, without really knowing that all these plans are very important. They are expensive, so let it be like that, and then we start to work around it. So that is another problem that we're still facing around it, but we have already tabled it into the different national debates, and we have received an statement that no more village division in Tanzania. But still it's an horror. We don't know really if this will happen, but we leave fingers crossed. The issue of cost, land use plan is not cheap. It costs up to $15,000. The whole entire land use plan, started from first implementing stage and to the final approval of document, map, certification, and the bylaws. It costs $15,000 US, and it's not cheap. For example, we have like 12,000 plus villages that are registered in my country, and only 4,000 have super land use plan in place. The rest are still are in different stages of land use. And that's because of the cost. Because sometimes if you go through the documents, the National Land Use Plan documents shows that it's very cheap. You can only do a free land use plan for less than $3,000. That's not true. Because for the first team, they call it District Land Use Planning Committee, together with UCRT team. This is composed of 12,000 individuals going to a single village with different expertise on forestry, land, natural resources, game, fisheries. They all go to the one village and try to get all the aspects. Those guys, they stay for 21 days in a village just to do all the coming up with the land use plan report. And 21 days times 50,000 shillings, that's already over $3,000. And so they don't count that way, but they just put in a record that land use plan is very cheap, but it's not. This is in according to the reality, and this is the work that I've been doing for the last 20 years. So I'm fully experienced on it. The issue of bureaucracy. This document depends on the government staff to approve in order to have legal certification of documents. And normally you put everything on the table and you wait for 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, sometime. And in terms of donor funds, it's really giving us a problem, saying this is the money I want for this village. I will report everything done in 1 year time, and then 1 year ends, say, yeah, I've finished my part, still other document waiting approval somewhere, but you have already committed yourself in the original document that in 1 year time everything will be done, and found that's really a challenge, but still working on around it. We also have a few recommendations. That the issue of women and youth being part and parcel of the land use plan process, to make sure that also the youth also understand the whole issue of land use plan and the traditional system of managing land. Also, we also found that most of the pastoralist men are very strong if they are economically good. But if they are poor, they run away from their home, going to the cities, looking for a job, and they leave land behind with women. And if the women have no capacity of how to manage land, again, you may find that when you get money and you go back home, you find there's no land left to the community. And also the youth, to make sure that they have all the capacity and the understanding on the land. There's also issue of district be part and parcel of the land use program, so that when the project ends, they will continue doing coaching with this community of the which are having the land use plan in place. Because sometimes when the project ends, you may find them that they say, "Oh, that was UCRT project, so it just finished." So I think nothing we can do as a district because it was a UCRT. But because now that we work together, we inform them all the process, and we still encourage them to continue with the program even if the program ends. There's also issue of having a follow-up on participatory land use plan management committees. That the committees are there, it's a village committees, it's not a UCRT committees. But UCRT doing facilitation of the committee, build their capacity. But even if we are not there, then they will continue doing day-to-day monitoring of the activities. Asanteni sana.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Marc Baker. I'm a founder and director of Carbon Tanzania. We're an investor in the landscape. We're not an NGO, we're a business. And we work within 3 districts within Tanzania, partnering with the Nature Conservancy and with other partners. UCRT are critical to all the work that we do and all the work we're able to build within Tanzania. Because without legal land ownership and without resource ownership, we can't contract and we can't certify. And so we can't take this step of creating this product which is climate change mitigation, which is protecting biodiversity, which is creating employment, which is economic development out of sound ecological practice. And that's the key that Carbon Tanzania adds to our partnership. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about the Hadzabe. We're going to talk a little bit about satellite mapping and how we understand the changes that are underway in Tanzania. But I just wanted to dwell on the Hadzabe for a moment, just to try and give you a picture of how these people think. When a Hadzabe is moving through this landscape in which they live, 450 species of birds, 39 species of mammals, 57 species of trees, it's like you walking through a supermarket. And as they walk through this landscape, different trees, different animals represent different medicines, represent different types of food. And they, as a culture, are connected to their land because of that. They are connected to all of the ecosystem in which they live. And a recent paper that you might have read on the microbiome, it's very popular these days, is based on what we understand from the Hadzabe. Diverse microbiome, diverse ecological system in which they live. They really are quite an extraordinary people. They've been called the last of the first. They can trace their origins back 100,000 years. They are unique, linguistically unique in that landscape. This is an image from the Yaeda Valley. This is a mobile camp that the Hadzabe live in as they move throughout this landscape. So the landscape that we're talking about, Edward introduced briefly a map of northern Tanzania. And for those of you who have been there, who understand it, I just want to put you on the landscape a little bit. You can see Kilimanjaro in the north of the map there. In the south, you're coming down to the center of the country, Dodoma. To the left there, Muhesi Game Reserve. That's a game reserve. It's a government protected area. In the northwest, you can see Yaeda on the Great Rift Valley lakes. So the lake you see in the north, Natron, Iasi, they're running along the Rift Valley in northern Tanzania. Usambara Mountains, these are the Eastern Arc Mountains here. Makame Wildlife Management Area, Tarangire National Park. And the red line is what we call our reference region for understanding land use change. And it's kind of important that you can put yourself in that map, because what I'm going to show you in the next slides is what we're talking about when we talk about land use change. So that's 2005. The orange is cultivation, and that's putting you on the map again with Makame Wildlife Management Area and Yaeda Valley. That's what it looked like in 2005. That's what it looked like in 2010, and that's what it looks like now. Deforestation rate running at approximately 9%, losing about 180,000 hectares of woodland and forest per year. It's unsustainable. And the driver of deforestation is predominantly very unsustainable agriculture. This is a dry part of the world. Land is farmed for perhaps 3 to 4 years and then abandoned. And what you get is this cycle of rapid desertification. What these slides show you are total failure of conservation strategies, failure of policies that are not enacted within the country, and really a failure because of a lack of land ownership, a lack of buying into the process of why I should conserve land. Why should I conserve it? Why do these trees mean anything to me? Why does this land mean anything to me? And that's the key point that we're trying to address here. The key point is to value these ecosystems, and we're doing it through this mechanism of red. So that's sort of what it looks like on a landscape. Farming will often start as relatively small parcels of land, but very quickly moves across to this sort of agriculture and is then abandoned. It's a picture you've seen from Brazil, Indonesia, and many other parts of the world. So let's now focus specifically on Yaeda. This is the land use plan that Edward showed you in the Yaeda Valley. There's Ngorongoro Conservation Area, Lake Iasi. And there's the CCRO, the Customary and Community Right of Occupancy. So that area is protected for the lifestyle of Hadzabe, the lifestyle of hunter-gatherers. Because of that, we can drop this red project area over the top of that landscape. And within that landscape, you've got CCROs for grazing. So for pastoralists and agriculture for agriculturalists. That's Yaeda Valley's agricultural area. And what you can look at in the background is the Hadzabe protected area. So two cultures, Bantu agriculturists and agro-pastoralists are butting against hunter-gatherers, but because of the land use plan, because of the CCRO, and because of the legal mechanism that UCRT put in place, what you have are very clear lines and harmony, not conflict. Now, for those of you who are aware, I think the figure so far this year is about 20 people who have died globally defending their land. And this happens every year, and it happens in Tanzania. Pastoralists and agriculturalists will conflict. They will kill each other over land and over resources. And as Edward rightfully pointed out, putting these land use plans in place is a key part of bringing a place where people can come together to resolve this conflict. Because if that's not in place, we can forget talking about elephants and zebras and ashy starlings. We can forget it. We can't talk about wildlife until this process is in place. So let's look at very, very specifically now land cover change in the Yaeda Valley since 2000. So in 2000, there's our Hadzabe CCRO. I don't want to get too technical and start talking about sort of red jargon, but what you can see there is our leakage area and our reference region. The red is agriculture in 2000. The red is new agriculture by 2005. And what we can see is agriculture and the cutting of trees starting to emerge within the Hadzabe area. The Hadzabe are egalitarian, they don't like conflict, and they move away. They do it within their own culture. If you have an argument or a disagreement with somebody, you move away from them. You don't carry on and continue with the argument. And so this is starting to push the Hadzabe off their land. 2005, 2010, you start to see that agriculture expanding within the area that is the CCRO for the Hadzabe. 2010 to 2015, it disappears. So all of these people have been moved out of this CCRO because of the CCRO going in place. In 2011, the CCRO agreement was signed, and immediately then that created a legal mechanism for the Hadzabe to secure their land. Now what you will see is agriculture increasing in this area, but that's an area designated for agriculture. It means that we can carbon account that loss, and it also means that any agriculturalists coming into the area have somewhere to go. And when they have somewhere to go, we can implement climate smart agriculture. We have a plan in which we can build good conservation practice. That's the edge of the Hadzabe protected area, and that's a sort of agriculture that it sort of starts at. This is a Tatoga Boma. Tatoga are agro-pastoralists, and so they're conducting some pastoralist activity and some agriculture. Under the agreement, under the CCRO, and within the Yaeda Valley, they can take their cattle into the Hadzabe protected area at a certain time of year. So again, the land use planning reduces conflict and creates a process in which we can build good conservation practice. So if we look at our data, and this is just from the end of last year, we work in partnership with the Nature Conservancy, and this is their team here in the US. If we look in 2010 at what the reference region, the area around Yaeda, in terms of land loss, we've seen a massive increase, and we're now looking at 2.1% just in that area around Yaeda. Where you have a village land use plan and a CCRO but with no real enforcement, we can see 0.26% per year with an increase. But in the CCRO, where we are protecting, and when I say protecting, we have 40 people employed every year, I'm going to talk about the revenue a little bit, to enforce the land use plan. They patrol, they capture people that are doing illegal activity, and they bring them into the village. The land use plan has bylaws, and that enables us to enforce the land use plan. So let's talk about money, because people love to talk about the whole money thing with REDD. One of the things we did at Carbon Tanzania when we started in 2008 was immediately go for the sales and marketing straight away. We didn't develop like an NGO. We didn't say, all right, we've got 5 years of money, let's build a project, and when we get to issued our verified emission reductions, we'll try and find a buyer. That's not what we did. We used social impact investment in this case, and we started to build our market straight away within Tanzania. So within safari companies in Tanzania, we literally went door to door and said, hey, you need to do something about your carbon emissions. We've got the solution. Let's start getting on board. And that meant we can start to pay people straight away to try and operationalize the project and meet this opportunity cost, this key balance that we're trying to reach, where it's more valuable to protect your land than it is to farm it. That's the key point we're trying to meet, the value proposition. And so far our sales have continued to increase up to 2017, and we now have forward sales agreements, guaranteed revenue through to 2022 with Native Energy here in the US. And how do the communities spend this money? It's their project, it's their land, it's their money. And they make the decisions about how this money is spent. We transfer the money on their behalf to reduce the operational costs of living in a remote area and trying to go to a bank and transfer money. It's all digital. We can digitize money. We send it to people through their telephones. Very, very easy to do. So this is how the community spend their revenue, or have spent their revenue in the last 5 years. Village government, ward government, district government. It's essentially tax, if you want to look at it like that. District government is key, because a lot of the farm-driven policies and land policies that look at land and say, well, there's nobody doing anything here, we should do something with it, are driven from these district government positions. So very, very important that the district government get money. And they utilize that money and get much more, they're much more interested in Yaeda now than they were a few years ago, just because of the money. We've set up a health insurance scheme, so all the Hadza get free health insurance. We work directly with the local hospital to do so. We pay all school fees, primary, secondary, university, all covered and covered for the next 5 years. So people can plan. There's a variety of governance work, mainly around finance, revenue sharing, training, and equipment, payment for community scouts. And community use, which is the bulk of the money, is often spent on food. What the Hadza will do is buy corn as it's farmed early in the year and store it, and then use it later on in the year at the end of the dry season. The impact on climate change in northern Tanzania is that the dry season is getting longer. Rainfall is actually increasing, but increasing into the beginning of the year, but we're losing the dry season. So that's pretty critical for the Hadza that are dependent on many roots, tubers and food sources that are starting to come in once the rains begin. Thank you very much. I presume we have time for questions.
All right, we'll take some questions from the room first, and then we'll see if anybody online has some.
Got a very basic question. How many people are in those communities?
Yaeda is 2,500. Hadza is about 1,200, but that's 2012 National Bureau of Statistics. But many of the people in these landscapes are moving. So around 2,000 to 2,500 is probably a strong figure.
So can I ask a question to Edward as well?
Yeah,
second question?
absolutely.
So
sorry, if everyone could just briefly introduce themselves and where they're coming from, that'd be helpful.
Sure. So I'm Carol Boudreau. I lead the Landesa Women's Land Rights Center and have worked on CCRO projects in Tanzania as well. And I think the model is just a great and important model, Edward. So many congratulations for working on that model. My question for you is, how involved are you with the new national land use planning policy that's coming through? Because you're exactly right. This process is it's overly cumbersome. It's ridiculous to have 20 people sitting in a village for everyone, right? For every one of those days. And it does seem like the NLUPC wants to be more participatory, or at least they seem to be signaling that they want to be more participatory. But in order to be more participatory, they have to give up some authority, right? And allow the communities to take more of the lead there. So are you encouraged? What do you see coming forward from that process? So that's one question. And then over here, Mark, for you, I'm so interested that the majority of the funding is going directly for community use. How do you ensure that there's equitable voices participating in that decision-making process?
Yeah, let me start. The issue of expenses, actually, it is something that even our government knows.
Yeah.
But sometimes they don't want to put into documents because they feel that it is a bit awkward paying people participation. But in reality, it's there. Because if you don't want to pay them, they will not turn up. And none of them will pass any document because they said we did not participate. So now what we are doing as UCRT, we are now sitting in the National Land Use Plan Commission. We have our representatives there, where when they draft policies and documents regard to land, we start to have someone advising them what to do in the favor of the local communities. We might be able to change these things in papers, but I don't really think that it can also translate into the reality. Reality might take a bit of time, but we must inform the donors community and the people in general that these things are happening, and it's not cheap the way papers are talking about it.
Thank you.
So, due partly because of certification, but due partly because elite capture, of course, in these types of projects is a huge problem globally. We have a mechanism in place. Every 6 months, we sit with all of the community, everybody. They're all required to come to this meeting. So you have district, village, ward, government, community representatives, and community members who can come. And generally what happens is each camp will send a selection of men and women. In the Hadzabe case, it's different than in Makame, where you're working with Maasai, or in Takata, where we're working with Tongwe, just because of the cultural differences. What we say is this is how much money we have for this last 6 months from carbon sales. And remember, because of the contract, it's results-based. So we have monitoring forms that are completed every month that have to be put in. We analyze the data to make sure that everybody's doing what they should be doing. And then people make the decision about where the money wants to go. Now that donut there I showed you was a general over the last 5 years. There have been meetings where the district has been cut out because people don't feel that the district have carried out the role that they feel the district should do. There's been disagreements with village where the Hadzabe community have said we're not going to give the village any money this 6 month period. So it shifts. And especially we have it in May and we have it in November. November because school fees are paid in January. May because that's the end of the wet season, the beginning of the dry season. And people want to be able to buy food at that point in time as it's being harvested and store it to be able to use it, get it at a better price, obviously. So they're the 2 dates that happens. Once we've said, right, this is what money's been spent on the previous 6 months, this is what money you have for this next 6 months, we leave. And when we leave, the village government and the communities all sit down together and they make a decision and come up with the minutes of a meeting signed by everybody and stamped by the village. That's then a legal document in Tanzania. So we can transfer this money without paying any tax. because that we have to be aware of course, to central government. And then we transfer the money to the district government, village government, ward government, and health insurance, etc., etc. So, and then every month we pay the people directly employed by the project using mobile money. So it goes straight to them.
Very interesting. Thank you so much. Yep, Matt?
Matt Morley with the Jane Goodall Institute. Could you, the people who are coming into the CCRO area and your area, that your 40 game scouts, where are they coming from? What's the sort of profile of these people?
So the academic world call them economic migrants. It's much more complicated than that. They come from three main tribal groups. It really depends how far back you want to go in history to answer that question. Many of the Bantu agro-pastoralists moved into Tanzania about 1,500 years ago. And it's the process of how they traditionally will operate. Move in, cut the trees down, and not even use them often, just burn them in situ. Farm, land degraded, move on. And so these people are coming from different parts of the country and outside of the country. So it really does vary. The CCRO, of course, creates the legal mechanism to be able to deal with that. The key point that UCRT, that Edward brought up, and this is something, of course, that we're focusing on now to much better, higher scale, partly because of support from the Nature Conservancy, which have brought together the NTRI partners, and a program that is funded by USAID called the Endangered Ecosystems in Northern Tanzania. We're going to scale. Because, of course, having these small isolated CCROs, okay, but we need the connectivity. So over the last 3 years, we've really gone to scale on these CCROs and land use plans, now linking up large parts of these ecosystems. And of course, that just makes it better for the connectivity, but also for proving this case. Because I think we still are proving the case. There's no doubt about that. That there are elements of national government that would say, well, everyone's Tanzanian, they should be able to go where they want. Yet we've got 127 different tribes, 3 different cultural groups, you're losing land in one way or another, whether it's pastoralist or agriculturalist. So it's quite complicated. And the area we're talking about is right on this border between Bantu agro-pastoralists and pastoralist Maasai and Hadza hunter-gatherers. And so it is really a conflict point. And you can see that in those satellite maps. So they're coming from lots of different places. What we're hoping, I think our vision in the next 10 to 20 years is to start to slow that rate of deforestation across the landscape, but really secure the rights of pastoralists. So land, just because it's woodland, doesn't mean it doesn't have value. And that's an argument we have to take at lots of different multiple levels of government, of course. And that's why we're here, partly to put that discussion across.
Any others from the room? I have a question. Yep. You didn't have time to talk about Makame, WMA, the work that Carbon Tanzania is doing. Can you talk a little bit about that and maybe compare and contrast it to Yaeda Valley? Because I imagine that it's ecologically quite different.
Yes.
So how do you approach that?
Okay. So within Tanzania, we're working under 3 policies. The CCRO is under the land policy. Makame WMA is under the Wildlife Act. So a wildlife management area, which was the WMA, Makame WMA, was set up by AWF in, I'm going to say 2009, 2010.
Yeah.
So this is a 4,500 square kilometre area, 5 villages, 100% Maasai pastoralists. The northern part of that, which is an area that's set aside for grazing, we've just dropped this RED project over the top of that. The RED project is supported by the resource management plan that shows that the communities want to prevent deforestation in that area. Yes, so that's it's a big project, it's at scale. I mean, it's the biggest community conservation area in the country. WCS have just finished camera trapping, hugely diverse in terms of wildlife. I don't want to quote a mammologist and expert, Charles Foley, but he said it's absolutely stuffed with aardwolf was his technical phrase. But yeah, it's very rich in wildlife, very rich culturally, and that's sort of the project that we're just finishing now under BCS CCB. And yeah, so that's the next sort of exciting step we have. And then working with TNC in Western Tanzania, we're linking Mahale and Katavi National Parks through 7 villages under the Forest Act. And we already have a buyer agreement for that for the next 10 years. So we can already finance the employment and the village payments for that project. So yeah, going to scale, and that's what it needs. That's what we're here to talk about. This landscape connectivity in that context is linking Makame all the way up to the Rift, through the national parks, the easements, the game reserves, and yeah, CCROs.
Thanks. Can you tell us if there are questions online? I can't see any of my chat box here. Yes. Please discuss the enforcement of the laws protecting the Hadzabe's land. Example, how done and by whom?
Okay. So the name, sorry? John.
I don't see John. Yeah.
Is that John?
Yeah.
Okay, John. So the enforcement is done by the Hadzabe. The land use bylaws state what you can do in each of the CCRO areas and at what time of year. The Hadzabe will patrol the area. If they capture someone who's breaking the bylaws, they go to the village government. The village government has the right to fine that person depending on what they've been doing. That person is fined by the village government, and it can just end there. Now, when it comes to land encroachment, the village government can deal with that. And sometimes these people are taken to the district government because the district government is very interested in seeing this land security work. So quite involved now in the process. The key problems are with poaching. So where you have people who are hunting small antelope, the Hadzabe will capture them. If you have people hunting elephant and they've got weapons, then the Hadzabe will not. And that's where we stop. But they have a mechanism now for reporting to the district government. They will use their own money to put into the district government, fuel into the district government's car because they don't get any money, to bring the vehicle down to try and capture a poacher. And it's interesting how over the last 5-6 years, even with a pretty marginal level of enforcement, we've seen poaching drop off because those people just go somewhere else. So really the answer to that question is that there are different mechanisms for different types of land, and we track all that in our monthly monitoring. So we know exactly what happened when this person was caught, where they were reported to, and what the action was taken. And if there's no action, we can follow it up. And our monitoring forms have now been used in legal cases in court, documenting information to be able to take someone to court. But then that's the judiciary where we can't necessarily be involved. So it really depends on the outcome. But the mechanism in place, certainly being enforced and certainly working.
Was that it online?
That was it.
Yeah, okay.
There's one more.
Oh, one more. Does your monitoring mechanism facilitate reporting and action on urgent problems? Also from John.
So we've just started to put in SMART. Especially, I'm sure many of you know what SMART is. And that enables us to collect data relatively quickly. 3 years ago, there was no telephone reception. Now there is telephone reception. So that's an important aspect that allows people to communicate. And again, we really have seen the district government become much more engaged in what's going on. And it's because, let's not pretend it's anything other, it's just because of the money. And that's fine, whatever works. But the district governments are much more engaged now and will respond to issues of enforcement. But we store all our monitoring data. It's wrapped up in our annual report and it's publicly available on the Plan Vivo Foundation website.
Great.
Can I just ask one more?
Yeah.
Have you had many instances where CCROs have been challenged by an outsider, or where you've had to use the CCRO in a more formal context with other investors or other outside people who are trying to come in?
We never got an official kind of court challenge, but we have an experience where the local individual just tried to challenge it. But the best way in this process is it involved a big number of people in the village. It is not a certificate that has only to be defended by one individual. It is a group of people. So whatever complaint you bring about, you'll also be aware that the bigger number of people will also be facing to that particular thing. And this is really helping, because even if it is the local government official says, this is too much of tradition, and then on the state law, whatever, it has to have a bit law of kind of priority. But when they know that it is concerning big number of people who are also voters, because also vote means a lot, that if the number of people is big and the politician knows that it might also bring in another problem later, then it's easier to say, hey, go on. We just want to try whether it is viable or not viable. But it also been supported by other legal aspects, land use, certification, bylaws, and all those are purely legal government documents. So it is just a very small part of the whole entire land use plan process. So it will all be very difficult to say, I'm only challenging single certificate within many, because the other certificate will also remain defending each other. So that's why we found that it is more good in protecting community land, and we always researching it more and more to see if there's any equal gap, then we have to advocate for, to make sure that that gap is filled and the certificate remains as a tool to defend the local community, communal land. Because the land is now getting small and small, and the only way to defend it now, to leave this possibility community to live in harmony, is to go for communal land. I remember in one of the villages that CRT is working, the village communities meet and say we need to divide the land to avoid these always conflict with neighbors and all. So they take the total number of people within the village, the total hectares available, divide by number of people, and the research outcome says you are only going to get 0.3 acres of land. So it is where you put your boma, it is where you put your cattle, it is where you put your home. So it was, the only way to stay in good life is to leave this land the way it is and managing it collectively. Forget about the individual titling division of land anymore. And now that's the thing that people now are realizing it, and they're all now saying, "Oh, this is the way to go." If someone needs individual land, go to city, just buy the individual land and then enjoy. But if you need to maintain pastoralism as the viable economic option in the area, go for communal land management, nothing else.
Yeah, thank you. Just to note that this has been recorded and will be up online. It takes about a week or so, but you can find it there. And I want to thank again Mark and Edward. Thank you.